Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take the material you send us and, well, we dig in to find the core insights.
That's right. And today, we're looking at the artist Robert Camblin.
Yeah, we've got a couple of things here. A look back at his early career and also this really fascinating collection of his own quotes and thoughts.
A real mix. So the mission, I guess, is to pull out the key moments, the recurring ideas in his art and his thinking.
Exactly. Giving you, our listeners, a kind of shortcut to understanding who this artist was, what drove him.
Think of it as getting the essence, yeah, the core stuff, without having to read everything yourself. A deeper feel for Camblin.
Okay, so let's maybe start at the beginning, or, well, a significant early point, 1956. That seems like a huge year for him.
Definitely pivotal. In May '56, there's this announcement in the Kansas City Times.
Right, saying Robert Camp, when he was only 27, living on Oak Street, got a Fulbright Award to study art in Rome.
Just 27. That's young for that kind of recognition.
Yeah.
Fulbright's a big deal.
Huge. And we should probably remember what the Fulbright program was about, especially back then.
Yeah, it came out of the post-World War II era, didn't it? The idea was fostering understanding.
Mutual understanding, yeah, between the U.S. and other countries using education culture.
Exactly. Building bridges, you could say. It wasn't just about funding an artist. It had this larger goal.
And the support was serious. It wasn't just a pat on the back.
Oh, no. It covered quite a bit. Transportation over there and back, living costs, health benefits even.
And support for dependents, too. His wife, Bonnie, went with him.
Right. So it was a life-changing opportunity for both of them, really. A whole year abroad, funded.
So the key thing for you listening is early career, major national recognition, and this chance for a transformative experience. It really set a course.
And they made the most of that year in Italy. Lived in Rome, also Venice. They were constantly soaking it all in.
Museums, galleries, historical sites, just immersing themselves.
Yeah, and the sources mentioned specifically they went back to the Galleria degli Uffizi in Florence multiple times.
The Uffizi, wow. And he was apparently really drawn to one particular painting.
Hugo van der Goes' Portinari altarpiece. As mentioned, he had a particular interest in that one.
Interesting. That's a massive, incredibly detailed piece, isn't it? Flemish painter?
Yeah, known for its realism, its detail. Maybe that resonated with him even early on.
So this early fascination, focusing on this specific complex work, it gives us a little clue maybe into his developing taste.
Could be. An appreciation for detail, maybe narrative, or perhaps that mix of the earthly and the divine you see in Renaissance art. The sources don't spell it out, but the repeated visits suggest it made a real impression.
Right. And while he's absorbing all this in Europe, things are happening back home too. 1956 was busy exhibition-wise.
Very busy. He was in the 6th Mid-America Annual. That was at the Nelson Gallery of Art in Kansas City.
Which we now know as the Nelson Atkins Museum of Art.
Right. And his piece, Still Life with Pomegranates, it won a purchase prize. Got illustrated in the catalog, too.
And the medium he used is interesting, Duco.
Ah, yes, Duco. That was, what, DuPont brand? Automobile lacquer?
Like Jackson Pollock used.
Exactly. So that little detail tells you something. He wasn't afraid to experiment with unconventional stuff, even then. Puts him in that modernist context.
Definitely. And the recognition kept coming. Another purchase prize, this time at the Joslin Memorial Art Museum in Omaha.
Which later became the Joslin Art Museum.
And he even had a solo show just called Bob Camblin at Cody College down in Nevada, Missouri.
So yeah, 1956, Fulbright, Italy, exhibitions, purchase prizes using experimental materials. It's a launchpad year.
Absolutely, setting the stage for, well, for everything that followed, including the really thought-provoking ideas we find in his writings.
It's a perfect transition. Let's get into those quotes, his reflections on art, life, everything in between.
Yeah, this collection is incredibly varied. Some are just observations, others are deep dives into philosophy.
And you start seeing these themes pop up again and again, like time and change.
Uh-huh. There's that quote, "Fortunately, some things remain forever, or another 10 years, perhaps." It's got this wry awareness of how fleeting things are.
It does. And related to that, there's that more poignant bit about memory fading with age tied to Saltaire's Summer 1967.
As they approach the memory of songs and music stopped. Yeah, that hits hard. It's very evocative.
Then he shifts gears, thinking about knowledge, how we understand things.
I love the bit where he compares looking into the atom with magic.
Yeah. What connects those two seemingly different things? Science and magic.
Maybe it's that sense of wonder, or trying to grasp the fundamental nature of reality.
Could be. He talks about wanting this perfectly average view, something that appreciates both, leading to an intensely bright gray.
A gray area where they meet. It's about embracing nuance, not black and white thinking.
Right. Resisting easy categories.
Hmm.
Then he just flat out says the sixth sense is without a doubt.
Senza dubio, he writes. So definite. What did he mean by that, do you think?
Hard to say for sure, but maybe it ties into that tension he explores elsewhere, the physical versus the spiritual.
Like in that line, bright day and I soar, how cruel that my soul is attached to this earth, and yet...
Exactly. That feeling of being pulled between worlds, yearning for something more, but stuck here.
And then you get these very grounded, almost like personal rules to live by.
I cannot tell a lie to myself for very long. From 1974, that's powerful.
And the advice connected to it, find something in nature that completes you, and then surrender.
Self-honesty, connecting with nature, and then surrender.
Yeah.
Letting go, trusting something bigger than yourself found in nature. It contrasts with the forcefulness we sometimes associate with making art.
Which leads nicely into what he says about creating art itself. Sometimes it sounds so simple,
The light is all you need.
and the end is to evolve by doing the best you can. The means is to amplify what you're doing and believe.
Observation, effort, belief. Pretty essential.
Very distilled. And he lists other essentials for, as he puts it, maintaining reality. Balance, patience, freedom, silence.
Those sound like principles for life, not just art, don't they?
Absolutely. And his thoughts on why we make art seem to change, too.
He notes that shift, right, from art for art's sake.
To art for life's sake, or art for my sake, or art for survival's sake.
Yeah, so art becomes less about just aesthetics, maybe more personal, more necessary for him, or as a response to the world. A move away from pure formalism.
And he gives these almost Zen-like constructions sometimes, like step off the train of thought.
To find the power that is no power. To do the work that is not work. To laugh the true laugh. Bending is not bowing.
It's paradoxical, isn't it? It feels like he's nudging you towards a different way of being creative, something more intuitive, maybe less effortful.
Power that is no power. It suggests finding strength in letting go, maybe. Not forcing things.
And that other piece of advice, when you think, don't act. When you act, don't think.
Be fully present in one or the other. Don't split your focus. It connects to that idea he mentions, the Zen mind, maybe.
Ah, right. That state of focused awareness where intuition can bubble up, like deep concentration without trying to concentrate.
Yeah, and then contrast that with these beautiful, simple observations he makes, almost like little poems.
The cosmos waves as me with tree leaves.
On the tower we set, facing the clouds.
The rain-soaked willows brought me to my senses. Just these captured moments.
He's clearly looking closely at the world around him, finding significance in small details, especially in nature.
And amidst all this thinking, sometimes there's just pure feeling. Like, there is one joy that exceeds all other, and that's all I'll say.
So personal, yet he keeps it private. Hints at this deep well of experience behind the art.
We also see him talking to nature, playfully.
Well, that's enough about me, Mother Nature. Let's talk about you. What did you think of my last picture?
It's charming. Suggests this real dialogue, blurring the lines between him and the natural world.
And then you get these flashes of, well, almost stream of consciousness.
5 thoughts crashed at South Blewett and Mandel, followed by that wild list.
Yeah, it's like a peek inside his head, the rapid fire associations. Maybe that's the raw stuff his art comes from.
He also has thoughts on dealing with arguments or different types of people.
Ending an argument with a pessimist by saying, "You're absolutely right."
And with an optimist, it's a banana.
It's funny, but also maybe practical. A way to just disengage sometimes, recognizing not everything needs debating.
And that question he poses, as people move away from us, do they diminish in our eyes? Or mind? Or relativity?
Makes you stop and think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
About perception, distance, how subjective our view of others is.
He even reflects on his own struggles. My attempts to stop arguing created an argument.
Yeah, I think many of us can relate to that one.
And this distinction he makes is crucial. If you argue or if you agree, you may learn, but you do not communicate.
So communication, for him, is something deeper than just swapping viewpoints or finding agreement. It's about real understanding.
And there's that metaphor about searching. The gate stays open, the fence is broken, he keeps searching, but does not know the size of his quarry.
Captures that artistic quest perfectly, right? Driven by faith, maybe, but without knowing exactly what she'll find, the uncertainty of it all.
He also thinks about change, revolution versus evolution.
Suggesting real change, real understanding happens in the mind. He seems to favor evolution, that gradual internal shift, over sudden disruption.
And scattered throughout, you find these familiar sayings like, You never miss the water until the wells run dry.
Mixed right in with his own sharp nature observations, Starling's clouds. It's that blend of universal wisdom and personal seeing.
His sketchbook notes feel even more intimate. The trapped fish, wanting to be a shining fly.
Little windows into his inner life. And again, that connection to nature's cycles. He uses such vivid imagery sometimes, like shimmerline tapestries for darning needles. Poetic.
And then we get these really abstract bursts,
Canvas rectangles,
Yeah.
summer-like calligraphy, mystic and complete.
followed by that jarring line, Eater of Christians, Chimera, Byzantium, warm, cold, children's chair.
Images that collide. They don't offer easy answers, suggest a mind working on many levels at once.
His travels feed into San Gimignano, the marble island, and myths, like Icarus.
Shows his range of influences the immediate world, history, culture.
And he keeps returning to these core themes: life, decay, time, memory, how little we truly perceive.
Classic concerns for artists, really.
Later on, he calls the artist a free agent, and he even seems to anticipate participatory art, thinking ahead.
And that simple equation. Religion. Belief. It makes you think about what belief means in art, in life.
He keeps exploring these dualities: faith, discipline, communication, how they can help but also hinder.
And that almost postmodern line, art is and it isn't, and now everyone knows.
Followed by love art, but then he qualifies it, right? About making out versus real love.
Yeah, warning against mistaking the superficial for the deep, whether in relationships or in art.
He throws out these concepts like resist and submit and figure four, exercises, metaphors.
Hard to say exactly, but they suggest navigating tension, finding balance. And he has that funny line about historians loving artistic madness from a safe distance.
He talks about training our perception, opening it up, the difference between believing something and knowing it, like a mystic does.
And that history needs creativity to be believable. Awareness and creativity are key.
He calls cynicism destructive creativity and worries that too much understanding can kill the magic.
His metaphors for making art are great. Pushing up, slowly as a tree growing,
And draw, teach, search, reveal, always framed in paradox. That seems to sum up his approach.
He gets critical of contemporary art, too, feeling it's lost nuance, maybe overly influenced by theory, critics, money.
Leading to identification as the aesthetic. Ouch.
And that classic line about the critic being a legless man who teaches running. Sharp.
He talks about the basic human need to make marks and how words can fall short.
And how intention can sometimes push quantity over quality. Artists leave Easter eggs for historians, he says playfully.
He wonders if there's an inverse relationship. The emptier the art, the more critics and historians have to say about it.
He sees visual arts becoming non-visual. And again, mentions the mind focusing itself in Zazen.
Encourages just playing the creative game without fear.
And distinguishes types of drawing action: analytic, conceptual, each leading to different discoveries. Emphasizes drawing and concept as nonverbal.
He reflects on haiku, its simplicity, but the deep reaction it evokes. Finding your mystic switch, truth-changing.
And that great paradoxical advice: learn through failure. Value the process, the awareness.
He thinks about writing's nonverbal origins, how syntax limits nonlinear thought.
And how activities like drawing, reading, music can occupy the rational mind, letting the Zen mind bring forth hunches, inspiration.
He urges resisting learning sometimes in favor of feeling, really thinking, gaining deeper understanding without just adding facts.
And his twist on FDR: we have nothing to fear but fear ourselves. Plus his Zen take: you are always the Buddha.
The metaphor of mirrors everyone is a mirror, magic and shared experience.
And the fish not knowing water, the bird not knowing air, relating to the jump needed for the new perspective.
He differentiates magic. Negative, power-seeking versus positive, seeing-oriented, different kinds of seeing linked to art.
Real seeing, he calls it deceptive, all-encompassing.
Yeah.
Art only captures a part of it.
He considers the artist's dilemma, balancing technique, novelty, society's expectations in a disposable art world.
Touches on the popularized yin and yang, and the symbolist's idea that explanation kills understanding.
His mixed feelings on communication again, how wonderful and how sad, but also the simple joy of mixing fun and art.
He looks back on years passing, diverse influences, hoping for different intentions, different forms in his work.
That image of a standard sign against the sunset, how knowledge alone can't transfer feeling.
Contrasting images, white versus dried nature, contemplating dead landscapes, advising making the best of it, no mistakes, trust instincts.
He playfully twists pride goeth before a fall. Uses a hologram analogy, arguing bits miss the whole picture achieved through cooperation.
Sees chaos and order as cyclical. Introduces the hologram, collective clarity.
Talks about real-time, anticipating necessity, different ways to view the universe, finite, higher order all at once, interprets solipsists.
Views himself living in past, present, future simultaneously, focusing on dreaming of how it works.
Time travel at the speed of enlightenment. Love that.
Contrasts a hawk and a snake, different ways of being, the complex human path of least resistance.
Imagery of the way back, beginnings and endings cycling. That odd question about architect Louis Sullivan in a broom closet in Irish honor.
Metaphor of wooden versus golden crutches,
Uh.
futility of inner conflict. Advocates dolce far niente, the sweetness of doing nothing.
And that incredibly vivid passage quotes, too, about the phoenix frozen in Salt Lake City, waiting billions of years for a different fire. The living was the meaning.
Wow. And woven through all this, we have quotes from other thinkers he found resonant.
Yeah, quite a list. Shinichi Suzuki on art and personality, Alan Watts on interconnectedness, William James on belief creating fact.
Sartre on being, Zen proverbs, Henri Bergson on intuition, perception, Teilhard de Chardin on connection, Lamarck on change.
Arthur Koestler on creativity as learning, originality, Carl Jung on imagination, the unconscious, play, order, and chaos.
John Fowles, from The Magus No Plan, Self-Acceptance. Dostoevsky on unspoken fears. J.D. Salinger on the artist's pursuit, Money Blues, Not knowing until you act.
John Updike on caremaking activity creative, art as breathing room, his imagined Kansas audience. John Barth on attributed value, Lawrence Durrell on art and wounds, Aldous Huxley on inconsistency being natural.
It shows how widely read he was, how he placed his own thoughts in dialogue with others.
Then there's his ecology of art idea from around 68. Do your own thing, artists contributing just by being in a messed up world.
And that introspective bit, from the same time dissolving images, holding chaos, the goal of captured truth, the scary freedom of his truly independent works.
He reflects on making unique, intimate art when consumerism favors shock value, when concept replaces tradition, avoiding gimmicks, maybe participatory art.
And finally, that concise, maybe slightly weary reflection on teaching at Rice University.
The first year, I assumed. The second year, I capitulated. The third year, I'm teaching, 1969-70.
Followed by that strange, evocative image of the ego following gracefully, like goldfish waste, circa 1969.
So, wrapping this up, we've seen Camlin's early success, the Fulbright, the exhibitions, real validation early on.
And then this incredible range of thoughts, reflections spanning decades. Recurring ideas about time, how we see things, what art is for.
Self-awareness, nature, the human condition, it's all in there.
His journey, even just through these glimpses, tells us so much about the creative process, the life of an artist-thinker.
He was clearly someone who thought deeply, observed closely, and connected his art-making directly to his exploring of life's big questions.
A really integrated approach. The art and the philosophy weren't separate things.
So for you listening at home, after hearing all these different facets of Camlin's thought, maybe ask yourself, what's the one idea or even just image that sticks with you the most?
Yeah, what resonates? And how might that little piece maybe shift how you think about creativity or art or just life?
Definitely worth pondering, and maybe seeking out more of his work. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Robert Camblin.